Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest of the Zoom events organized by the International Manifesto Group. Today's topic, as you all know, is the return of inflation, perceptions, realities, politics. My name is Radhika Desai, and I am convener of the International Manifesto Group, and I am speaking to you from Winnipeg in Canada, which stands on the stolen lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. This event is sponsored by the International Manifesto Group, which was created as a discussion group at the start of the pandemic to discuss the unfolding of the broader economic, social, and political and international crises that the pandemic had clearly accelerated. Since then, we have written a manifesto which is entitled Through Pluripolarity Towards Socialism, which I encourage everyone to read, sign, perhaps tell your friends about it, and also to donate and volunteer. It has also been a volunteer with us in the activities of the International Manifesto Group. The manifesto has already been translated into about 15 languages and more are awaited. You can find more information at the International Manifesto, all one word, .org. So let's get on to the topic of the day. Inflation has made a big comeback after nearly 4 decades of neoliberalism, and we think this is a pretty big deal because slaying the dragon of inflation was regarded for a long time as neoliberalism's greatest achievement. Whatever else you could criticize it for, many people thought that this is what it had convincingly done. Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan even claimed that the historical relationships between money and income, between money and the price level, have largely broken down, depriving the aggregates of much of their usefulness as guides to policy. And of course, the conquest of inflation was attributed to deft management by central banks, in particular, the Federal Reserve. And of course, this claim also greatly added to the claim of central banks, particularly the Federal Reserve, to be the sole managers of economies, as they have been, particularly in the United States over the last 30-odd years. Every move they make is typically justified in the name of keeping levels of employment high and growth high and inflation low. But of course, as we know now more clearly than ever before, what they have really been doing, what their eye has really been on, is the creation of huge asset bubbles. I remember reading way back in 2008-9, William Fleckenstein's Greenspan's Bubbles, and many of you may now know that more recently there has been another book by Mark Leonard called Lords of Easy Money, and quite frankly, you don't have to necessarily read these books to know that that's in fact what has been happening. When inflation first made its comeback last year, it was deemed transitory. The Federal Reserve Chairman in particular said, well, this is not going to last. It's just a result of the large amounts of money that we have given to ordinary people, which was, of course, itself an exaggeration. And it soon became clear that inflation was, in fact, not temporary. So today, what we find is that unlike back in the 1970s, at least in my understanding, the Federal Reserve is caught on the horns of a dilemma. It cannot just raise interest rates to the levels necessary to combat inflation. I mean, that itself is not necessarily the best way of dealing with inflation, but I would argue it's the only way capitalist societies have of dealing with inflation. But they can't do this because if they do that, they will bring the financial house of cards on which the wealth of the wealthiest people in the United States and other places rest. So essentially, we are told that they face a dilemma between monetary stability and financial stability. So we're trying to understand this very complex situation today. How did we get here? What exactly happened? Several aspects are important. One is, of course, why now? Why is inflation returning now? And of course, most of you who are interested in the topic will have seen that there have been lots and lots of causes that have to which inflation is attributed, depending on what your favorite is. Astronomical money creation, supply chain destruction, increased demand for inputs, war. Of course, the Russians always have to be blamed for everything that goes wrong in the West, rising commodity prices, climate disruptions to agriculture, etc. The second question is, if inflation has returned today, we also have to look back to what exactly was the reason why it seemed not to make an appearance for the last 40 years. And you can at least name a few obvious reasons: low wages, low prices for third world commodities, and of course, low wages in third world countries, outsourcing, which was associated with it. And finally, of course, the sheer levels of financialization that strangle productive activity, damping the possibilities of inflation. How will this bout of inflation affect the vast majority of the world's people? To what extent will it affect the dollar system? What are the policy options that are progressive? Are monetary measures enough? What does this say about capitalism's ability to sustain productive economies? These are the questions we face, and I'm very happy to say that to discuss with all these questions with us, we have a really distinguished and impressive panel, and I'm particularly pleased that Ingo Schmidt and I, who put together this panel, were able to put together a really good mix of people from North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Latin America.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.